Hello, I'm Riley, and this is the Diegetic Advancement Podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Diegetic Advancement. I'm Riley, and today will be episode 2 of 6 Turns Down Under. But first, I have a couple of call-ins, so take it away, BJ from the Arcane Alienist.
Riley, congratulations on getting through RPG A Day 2024. It's quite a chore, but you did a great job. I enjoyed all the stuff you put out there, and I look forward to hopefully hearing what you do next year. Whatever format it needs to take to suit you and your the amount of time you have to devote to it. There's a lot of ways to go at it, but you did a great job, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you very much for the kind words, BJ. Didn't quite make it all the way through, but I got over the halfway mark before life hit me around a bit. But it was a blast to participate in, and I'm looking forward to doing so again next year. Congratulations to you as well. It's great listening to your experiences and positive input throughout the month. But great to hear from you. Thanks for calling in. BJ's details will be in the show notes. He runs a great podcast, recent episode on Morkborg, so go check that out if you're interested in that at all. I've got another call from Joe from the Hindsightless. Take it away.
Yo, Riley, super happy to hear you back on the mic, man. I hope your kiddo is feeling better, and it sounds like you had an awesome time at that convention, dude. Running Tomb of Horrors with OD and D for a group of 8, most of which were like brand new players. That's an epic achievement. Way to go, dude. Congratulations. Like, even though you said you watered it down a little bit, that's fine, man. It sounds like everybody had an awesome time. And then, yeah, in the game that you got to play in, dude, oh, man, ghouls are nasty. It doesn't really matter what system you're even using. Ghouls are just nasty. They're nasty in Pathfinder. They're nasty in Call of Cthulhu. They're nasty in older versions of D&D. They're just nasty, man. And the fact that it came so close, dude. I've run encounters like that where the party almost had it but ended up TPKing. And it's part of it, man. Bad luck is part of the game, when the table is just rolling bad and the dungeon master is rolling hot. Whoo, get out of town, man. It can turn nasty in a hurry. But I'm really glad you had a chance to go to that convention and get to play in person again. That's awesome, man. Playing in person, I love it. I'm so glad that you got to do it. I'm glad that I'm getting to do it again. And yeah, it was just really good to hear you back on the mic, dude. Anyway, take it easy. Peace out.
Thank you very much for the call, Joe. It's great to be back on the mic. And yeah, I mean, that convention was a blast. My first ever convention, getting to run Tomb of Horrors for 8 players with a bunch of newbies in the mix. Really great experience. I hope they had a good time. They certainly seemed like it, and I at least had a great time. And yeah, the game I got to play in, so good to finish right around the finishing mark for how much time we had left for the game anyway, with a very, very close call to ghouls. So iconic. It was really great. Everyone sort of watching the last few dice rolls, that last save versus paralyzation, because we were all fine. If one of us could survive, we would have slept that paralyzation off, and it would have been all good. So, such a great con experience. Too bad there's not too many conventions in my area that I at least know of, so I might have to wait another year before I can do it again. But it's fantastic, and yeah, playing in person, so good, and it's really great to hear about your in-person game. It sounds like you and your players are having a blast, and I'm really enjoying listening to it. I like the way that you're handling the downtime in between sessions with a month between games. I think it's a great way to keep people engaged and remembering what's happened, and a way for you to keep engaged with the game as well. So keep it up. Super glad that you're still on the mic as well. I think I might have missed something in your call, but anyway, thank you so much for calling in. Good to hear from you, and good to hear from you as well, BJ. Thank you very much for the calls. If you feel like calling in, anyone who's listening, details for that are in the show notes. Happy to hear about absolutely anything, and if you want to call in but not appear on the show, just let me know. Okay, anyway, on to the main event. 6 turns down under. Okay, let's talk dungeon generation tables. What's changed since last episode? The biggest change has been going from a D20 to the D100. Originally, I wanted to use a D20 because you could roll a whole bunch of them at the same time and read them off in order, but it limited my options per table and made me split the corridor table into shapes and contents. So you'd roll 10-foot corridor straight, and then you'd have to roll to see if there was a door in there or if it was empty. And I would often forget to check the contents. So with the D100, I've been able to combine those tables together, gotten a little bit more control over the odds for individual results, and been able to add more results, like a very rare chance for a corridor to be trapped. I've also split the room width into 2 tables. So now you roll the width from the left of the door and from the right of the door. And this gives you the position of the door as well as the width, and fits with the way that I'm relaying mapping information. For example, I might say the door opens into a room, the wall extends 20 foot to the left, 10 foot to the right, and the room is 30 foot deep. This gives us a 40 by 30 foot room with 3 different measurements being relayed and 3 different table results. The exits from a room table has also got more results now, moving to the D100 being the cause of that. Gives us a little bit more variety in the results there, which is, I think, a good thing. Okay, so where to from here? Well, shortly I'll jump into another playthrough of just mapping a dungeon, but for the next episode, I'm going to be running characters through it. So, fighting monsters, recovering treasure. So, for that, I'll need room contents. Think the BX, D6 table, empty, monster, trap, etc. I need periodic checks, checking for random encounters, and I'll need tables to stock these results. I'll be using Swords and Wizardry to start with, so I'm covered for character generation rules for now. But next time you hear me talking about this, that's what I'll be talking about, and I'll play through some actual dungeon crawling with characters. For now, let's jump straight into another 6 turns down under, mapping a dungeon. Okay, starting as normal with our 30-foot square room, a spiral staircase leading back to the surface in the center, and a door in the center of each of the 4 walls. We're moving at 120 feet again, so let's get started. We'll head through the northern door. The door opens into a chamber, with the wall extending 10 foot to the west and 10 foot to the east, and the room is 50 foot deep. There are exits at 10 foot on the northern wall and 20 foot on both the east and west walls. Reminder that since this is a chamber, the exits are corridors and not doors, and that I'm reading the measurements from west to east and from north to south. So that 10 foot is in the sort of northwest corner, and the 20 foot is just 10 feet away from the northern wall. The party moves to the far end of the room to peer down each exit. The western exit ends in a dead end after 10 feet. The exit on the northern wall immediately turns west, and the eastern exit goes for 10 feet and turns north. The party chooses to follow the eastern corridor. Rounding the corner, the corridor goes straight for 10 feet and branches east and then branches west. Remember that the branches are the 10-foot section, so it's a 10-foot section where it branches east and continues north, and then another 10-foot section where it branches west and continues north. First, peering down the eastern branch, they see the corridor goes straight for 10 feet and ends on a door on the eastern wall. Then, checking the western branch, the corridor goes straight for 20 feet and ends. There is a door on the far western wall and the northern wall at 20 feet. This is slightly different in that I'm describing it 20 feet from where the party is, rather than from west to east, as I would with a room or chamber. The first 10-foot section of the corridor is trapped, which I'll ignore because I don't have party members. The original corridor, heading north, immediately turns west. This is the end of the first turn. The party decides to explore the eastern branch first. Opening the door at the end of the corridor beyond immediately turns north. The corridor goes straight for 20 feet, then branches west. The corridor then turns west. The western branch goes for 20 feet. There is a door on the northern wall at 20 feet, and then branches north. The map gets a little bit weird here, so let's see how I go. Following the northern corridor and peering around the corner, it opens into a room. The wall extends 20 feet to the north, and the room is 20 feet deep. There are 2 doors on the northern wall, one on the eastern wall at 10 feet, and a door on the southern wall at 10 feet, which should already be on your map from the previous western branch. There's also a corridor exiting the western wall at 30 feet, That corridor is a T intersection. The southern portion leading back links up to the previously mapped corridor, and the northern portion leads to a staircase leading down. The party enters the T junction, heads south, and peers down the corridor to the west. The corridor branches south and then turns north. The southern branch extends 10 feet, ending in a door. This should also link up to a previously mapped door. This ends turn 2. The party follows the corridor west, peering around the turn. The corridor turns again, this time to the west. It extends at least 70 feet, with a door on the northern wall at 40 feet. Behind the door is a room, with the wall extending 20 foot west, 10 foot east, and the room is 20 feet deep. There are no other exits. Returning to the corridor, it extends another 20 foot west, then turns south. This ends turn 3. And interestingly, this would probably be about the end for a normal episode. We're having to rest on turn 6, and having spent some time exploring rooms, listening at doors, potentially getting caught up in that trap, we would be at turn 5. However, let's continue on 2 more turns before a rest. The party continues west, peering around the corner to the south. The corridor immediately comes to a T intersection, with the eastern corridor coming to a dead end after 10 feet, as with the western corridor also coming to a dead end after 10 feet. However, there is a door on the southern wall at 10 feet. This opens into a room with the wall extending 10 foot west and 10 foot east and 20 feet of depth, with a door on the southern wall in the middle. This also opens into a room with a door with the walls heading 20 foot west, 10 foot east, and extending 20 foot deep. There is another door on the eastern wall at 10 feet, which opens into a further room. The wall extends 20 foot to the north, 10 foot to the south, and is 50 foot deep. There are 2 doors, one on the eastern wall at 40 feet, and one on the southern wall at 20 feet. This ends turn 4. The party decides to head through the southern door, which opens into a further room with the walls extending 20 foot west, 20 foot east, and 40 feet north to south. There is a door on the southern wall at 40 feet and 2 doors on the western wall at 30 and 40 feet. They first decide to explore the southern door, which opens up to reveal a further room, walls extending 10 foot west, 30 foot east, and 30 foot north to south, with no further exits. So they head back and through the door on the western wall at 40 feet. This opens into a corridor which immediately turns south, branches to the west, and continues south for 10 feet before coming to a staircase leading up. They quickly peer down the western corridor, which extends 10 feet, branches to the north, and a further 10 feet west, before heading up the staircase and back to the surface to end turn 5. So they avoid resting in the dungeon. That's it for this 6 turns down under. Okay, a quick recap on how I thought that went. Pretty good. Ran, in my mind, just as smooth, if not a bit smoother than the previous dungeon, and I didn't forget any of the rolls because it was all on one table. I got some good, interesting results. A little bit tricky around that one room where we've got multiple corridors and a weird wall with just a door that the 2 corridors kind of wrap around, so kind of a pointless door. You kind of have to imagine that maybe those walls have caved in or something there, but it had once been a room. We're going to get some interesting wrapping back around, I think. Things looping around. So that was a happy coincidence. And a good amount of mapping, as I said. We'll probably only get half of that done between listening at doors, searching rooms, getting into combat, things like that. But that's okay. One thing is that these tables build what GFC from the video that I linked in the first episode refers to as a Soji dungeon, which is effectively the walls are kind of drawn as paper thin. There's rather than sort of 10-foot gaps. This is because you can roll coming out of a door as straight away turn. There's no 10 foot then a turn. personal preference, I think it's harder to draw Soji Dungeon. I think we end up with situations like that difficult area to map because of that. I think a simple fix without modifying the tables at all is just to kind of buffer each some of the results with a 10-foot corridor. Then it's just a plain 10-foot corridor. So perhaps we can try that in a future episode. Looking forward to the next one with an actual party and actual things to run into and get into trouble. So hopefully you'll be hearing that in the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. Thank you very much for listening. The tables that I am using will be in the show notes, as well as the map that I drew during this episode, and the reference mapping sheet that I created in the first episode will also be linked below. As usual, links to the callers and anything else I've discussed will be in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening. I'll talk to you next week. Bye for now. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can reach me via Spotify, SpeakPipe, Discord, or email. Those details, along with everything I've talked about today, are in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.